Fart boy walking. Anthony Bourdain, cooler than a rock star? And is Thunderpants just a Bible story in disguise? All this and more on today's How Did This Get Made? Last Looks. Hit the theme!
How did this get made? Trash can fires in Jacob's ladder. Started out bad, now it's getting badder. Jason Statham, Angelina. Down at the Largo is where I seen her. How did this get made? Tall John Shear and Jason Zeus. Balcony monsters about to puke. Julian asks what's its mission, and where the bunch starts is another question. How did this get made? How did this get made? How did this get made?
Hello to all my Allens out there. I'm your host, Paul. Paul, that's right. And welcome to How Did This Get Made? Last Looks, where you, the listener, get to voice your issues on Thunderpants, a movie that Discord user Side of Mick G thinks could have also been called The Farting of the Opera. I like that. The farting of the opera. Did I sell it the right way? I get what you're going for and it works. Thank you, Side of Mick G, for that alt title. Remember, if you have an alt movie or a tagline to one of the films that we did, please submit it on our Discord and we may just read it on this show and maybe I'll nail it and maybe I won't, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to read it. And coming up on today's episode, after corrections and omissions, we will get an exclusive deleted scene from our Thunderpants live show. Jake Brennan, the host of Disgraceland, stops by for a really great just chat with me and Jason. We are all fans of each other. We're talking about Anthony Bourdain, David Bowie, and meeting people in movies that we cover on this podcast, plus a whole lot more. And lastly, as always, I will reveal the movie for next week's episode. People, Troll 2 is finally being tackled by How Did This Get Made? And why are we doing it? Well, we're doing it to raise some money for MoveOn.org. We're doing a virtual live show on September 6th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Only people in the United States of America can watch the live virtual show because of campaign finance laws. But everyone will be able to hear the actual show because we will release it as a regular podcast. But if you're bummed out, you're mad, Paul, we've been waiting for a virtual show for so long. How could you do this to me? Well, let me tell you something. We will do another virtual show for you just in time for the holidays. Now, we are almost sold out for New York. We'll be there on November 15th. I think there's a handful of seats left, but we'll be at the Town Hall Theater as part of the New York Comedy Festival. My book, Joyful Recollections of Trauma, is available wherever you get your books, your ebooks, or your audiobooks. And if you want a personalized copy, well, let me tell you, go to my website, head on over to the link that says get a personalized copy. It will take you to Chevalier's bookstore where I will write whatever you want in the book and send it to you. I just did it today. I signed about 100 books and it was awesome. I love doing that. And as we do these live shows, I'll find other ways to continue to sign the book. Now, that's all the plugs I got, so let's get into it. Last week, we talked at length about Thunderpants. We had questions, and we might have even missed a few things. Here is your chance to set us straight, fact check us if you will. It is now time for corrections and omissions.
It's corrections and omissions. Tell us what we got wrong last week.
Thank you, Todd Fronauer, for that theme song. Let's go to the Discord. Now, Early Bird writes, the scene where the students strip Patrick down to his underwear was actually based on something that happened to the writer Phil Hughes when he was a kid. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. But even worse than that, when it came to shooting the scene, Bruce Cook, who played Patrick, understandably got nervous. So to help relax him, his father stripped down to his underwear? I mean, I don't know if that's worse than, well, I don't know. I would think that the director would strip down and that would be like a sign of like camaraderie, but the father doing it, maybe that is weird. Anyway, that's not the only weird thing from this movie. Also at the premiere of the film, they apparently gave out whoopee cushions to everyone attending, and the audience then broke the world record for the most people sitting and simultaneously farting on whoopee cushions. Wow. This movie is the gift that keeps on giving. Monorail Times writes, they were absolutely cashing in on Rupert Grimpert's Harry Potter fame. By the way, I have a Rupert Grimpert shirt. I have two of them, and I love them, and they're super comfortable. I have one of them is like a baseball tee. It's perfect. And he is very featured on the DVD cover, and he isn't even in character. I think that's the thing that I wasn't able to articulate. Yes, Rupert Grimpert is on the cover, but not in character. It's just a picture of him. And when you look at the DVD cover, Rupert is older, right? So it's like he's no glasses, no curly hair. They basically CGI'd his head or his like Harry Potter face on his younger body. Really weird. Check it out for yourself. It's worthy of seeing what they did there. I believe they did that to Adam Sandler in a movie on a cruise ship, like he's in one scene. Anyway, Danny the Wall writes, is Thunderpants a Bible story? Because Patrick Smash has a miraculous birth like Moses. He's ostracized for his special gifts, becomes a tool for others to gain power like Joseph. He is strung up to pillars for punishment like Samson, and is redeemed and carried away before his death like Elijah. And the biggest of all, everyone thinks he had died, but he returns to be a savior for those adrift, shepherding them back to their rightful place. Is Thunderpants the greatest story ever told? Yes, every story is essentially a Bible story, and you broke it down, Danny the Wall. Holy shit. You know what? Fuck it. You won. I'm going to tell you that right now, because that was a great correction omission. I don't think anyone can beat it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put money up, but I'm going to be open. I'm going to be honest with it. If someone beats it, I'm going to steal it away from you, Danny. All right, let's go to the phones. First up, we have Carrie the librarian. Carrie, what do you got?
Hey, Paul, June, and Jason. I'm calling about the Thunderpants episode because I thought, as a former elementary student, also an elementary student, and a current children's librarian, I might be able to clear up some of the things that seemed confusing and strange to you. So, I don't know if you realize that Thunderpants is based on the picture book, Thunderpants. And things like the names, Alan A. Allen and Placido P. Placido, are super on brand for a picture book. And not only are they, weird and fun, but it makes the name Patrick Smash unique and stick out, so the protagonist is more noticeable for the audience. The coloration, the all green and, stuff like that, almost like a cartoon, is another very picture book style thing. Things like that, weird storylines, bizarre names, weird colors, weird everything is part of what makes picture books appealing to kids. So I hope that helps clear all that up. Real quick, I just wanted to say that I love you guys for everything, but I particularly love you for all of the love that you give to libraries and librarians. It makes me so happy, and I love that you guys understand that libraries exist for more than just books, but for the community as a whole. And also, Paul, your book is awesome. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm sure the whole thing is awesome. And you should consider possibly doing readings at libraries. We love when authors read their books. So just an idea. Love you guys. Bye.
I love this description. By the way, Carrie, did you know that I was in the San Diego Library Conference? It was basically San Diego Comic-Con for librarians, and I met so many amazing librarians, and it was such a fun night. I got to perform, I got to sign. I had a absolute blast. Librarians are amazing. And you're right. There are so many great things that you all do. And many of you told me to stop or actually open up my world to Canopy to make sure that I am also hitting all the other services that the library has. So that is because of my visit in San Diego with those librarians. Thank you for your love of my book. Normally that would get you an automatic win this week, but Danny the Wall still is pretty strong. I appreciate you breaking down how children's books work. Maybe I should write a children's book. Is that, maybe, I don't know. Seems like a lot of people do that, but we'll see. Anyway, next call. What do we got? Joe from Sheffield.
Hi, Paul, June, Yasu, Jason, Harika, Milawalinika. I was at the show in Belfast for Thunderpants. I'm the guy who asked the Jacob's Ladder question. Sorry about that, Jason. and the guy June accused you of flirting with, Paul. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for the pod. It's a great show, and you've helped me, and I'm sure many other people, get through some tough years the last few years. And you just being there to cheer us up every week has been really fantastic. But I was calling to let you know that I started the Alan chant. I'm not quite sure where it came from. I was about 3/4 of the way into a bottle of wine, and it was standing only at the back. But I don't know, I just started it, and to my surprise, people joined in. It was pretty out of character for me, but I just thought I'd put that on record. So thank you again, and I hope you guys come back to the UK. If you do, please come to Sheffield. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Joe, I don't know what got into you, but that glass of wine, or that bottle of wine, I should say, created one of the best moments in the show. Yes, June is very jealous of you and our flirting, but I appreciate you getting that going. That is the perfect energy that we need. Thank you, Joe. And honestly, for starting the Alan chant, you are the winner of that show. I don't know if you're going to be the winner of this Last Looks, but I appreciate that you called in. Finally, Larry from Michigan.
Hey, hi. Thunderpants. I can't believe nobody pointed out that the kid wanted to be an astronaut. It it makes me giggle every time I think about it. And you should also look up Lepetomaine, late 1800s fartist that appeared at the Moulin Rouge. He could do a lot of things with his putt, too. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
Larry, wow. You knew that I had thrown down the gauntlet. Can you beat it? Can you beat Danny the Wall? And you might have done it. Holy shit. Astronaut. How did we miss that? And now you got me Googling. This guy, Joseph Peugeot, who is known as Lepetomaine, the gas maniac. I didn't even know that this is like a thing. He worked as a baker boy in Marseille to headline the Moulin Rouge. He hit the big time with such flatulent routines as blowing out candles, playing the French national anthem with a flute, and farting renditions of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, which lasted for more than 5 minutes. That's right. Holy moly. That is amazing. He is the David Blaine of farting. Wow. All right. Back to the Discord. Johnny Unusual. This is interesting, right? Apparently, Paul Giamatti is legit proud of this movie and will praise it whenever it's brought up. And here is a clip of Paul Giamatti talking about it recently when doing press for The Holdovers.
Paul, do you still think that Thunderpants is the best film that you've ever made?
I think Thunderpants is one of the most remarkable movies I've been in. Thunderpants is a British kids movie I did about a kid who farts uncontrollably. It is a brilliant movie. I'm not kidding. It's one of the most unique movies I've been in. You're looking at me
Is
like
it live action?
Oh, it's live action.
It's got the kid Rupert Grint, the kid from Harry Potter movies, before he did the Harry Potter movies. I think it's actually kind of an amazing movie. I really do. I don't know if it's the best movie I've been in. I don't know if I ever said that. But I think it's a great movie.
Thank you, Johnny, for that. Wow, everyone's coming correct this week. Colt Miserer writes, there's a deleted scene which you can watch on YouTube where you see that before Patrick was put in front of the firing squad, they tried to kill him in a gas chamber. However, the gas chamber failed because he built up such a tolerance to gas. Yikes, that is dark. Now, when you do watch a scene, and maybe you should, or maybe you shouldn't, I don't know, there is a prison guard who's escorting Patrick down death row, and instead of the guard yelling "dead man walking," he yells "fart boy walking." As a matter of fact, Scott, play "Fart Boy Walking."
Fat boy walking! Fat boy walking!
That's appealing. I want that as a ringtone. Can we make that as a ringtone? Can we put that on the Discord? Fart boy walking. All right. Fun facts. Man, oh man, you guys are killing it. Fun facts 47 writes, since this movie focused around farting, one of the most important elements is the sound of the farts themselves. One of the Foley artists for Thunderpants is Ricky Butts. Can't be a coincidence. Yeah, I see it right there. You're not lying. Ricky Butts in there. Maybe that's a joke. Wow. You know, I was so convinced the Danny the Wall got it. Then I met Carrie the librarian. Then I met Joe, who started the chant, the Allen chant. Then Larry from Michigan, who had the best observation. Then we get this clip of Paul Giamatti. Oh my God. I gotta say, though, the thing that blew my mind, the thing that really opened up everything was sometimes it's right in front of our face and we miss it. And Larry from Michigan, it was right in front of our face. Astronaut, and we didn't get it. So for you, pulling out the most basic of all observations that we did not see, you win. And for that, you get this song by John Wenzel. Hit it.
You win. You win nothing at all. But you're still cool.
Thank you, John, for that song. And remember, if you want to submit a winner theme, a corrections and omissions theme, or a just chat theme, email your theme to howdidthisgetmade@earwolf.com, but keep them short. 15 to 20 seconds is best. And if you want to chime in with your own thoughts about the latest episode, hit up the Discord at discord.gg/HDTGM or call us at 619-PAUL-ASK. Now, coming up after the break, Jake Brennan from Disgraceland will stop by to chat with me and Jason, and we will also announce next week's movie. But first, here is an exclusive bonus scene from our Thunderpants live show where we talk even more about Patrick Smash farting at the opera. We'll be right back.
It was so hard because, yes, it reached a high pitch, but it also then seemed to have a lot of juice to it.
Yeah.
Like it
did.
got real. It got really juicy.
It sounded meaty. It sounded meaty. Also, when the light falls, if I'm Patrick Smash, I'm as far away as June to the man who suffers a fatal blow to the head from a oh boy. Boy, do I wish I hadn't looked up. Please, no Patrick Smashes in the audience. But truly, he is so close to that death. What a trauma that must be.
Also, I will say that if I'm in the audience, I'm like, a farting opera singer. I would like to maybe hire that kid or find the person who poisoned him. Even though he's dead.
Can I just say
I love that.
Can I just say something? If I'm Placido, and I know
Placido
that...
P.
Placido. And
if I'm triple P.
Yes. And I know that there's going to be one note that this kid has to hit at a certain time. I'm actually not asking him to practice his farts. I'm like, conserve all of them. Like, don't rehearse. Don't blow them out because...
Doesn't he tell him not to eat that treat?
Yes, and I'm like, no, eat it all, eat everything.
No, but June, he is teaching him control. He is the Yoda of this Star Wars
Wait a second,
journey.
Are you saying?
I think he's more the Unkar plot.
Paul, are you saying that in terms of the narrative of the story,
yes,
that Patrick Smash learns control of his sphincter?
Yes.
His sphincter.
He can perform on cue after the opera.
But I'm agreeing with you, Paul, and kind of exactly what you're saying, and what you were saying earlier is the movie's logic would dictate that, like, he would be revealed to be the person who is Placido P. Placido disgraced. It's a fraud. He's a fraud. And then they would say, but Patrick Smash, you have the most beautiful instrument in the world. Elevate him to the top of the opera game. Instead, they're like, my guy, you've got to die. And then... outer space for you. Like, what a ride!
Or I thought for sure, like, that scene was going to be played for much more comedy. And again, not to critique the movie, but I felt like, I want those farts to happen at the wrong time, multiple times throughout his performance, and have Placido deal with that live on stage.
I also was wondering, where is Keira Knightley?
People, Monday matinees are going strong. We're releasing old parts of our back catalog, and we are doing so with films that I remember fondly, like the 1995 sci-fi action film Johnny Mnemonic, starring Keanu Reeves and Dolph Lundgren. And we will be joined by Jessica St. Clair as she breaks down a movie that truly upset her. Trash can fires? Oh, you bet. All right, people. Like I said, my book, Joyful Recollections of Trauma, is available wherever you get your books. Give it to a friend or buy one for yourself. Anyway, welcome right now to the show a very special guest. Not only do we have Jason Mantzoukas joining me this week, but we have Jake Brennan, the host of Disgraceland. If you don't know Jake, he hosts this podcast, which I love. It blends music, pop culture, and true crime with deeply researched storytelling and cinematic sound design. I think you will love it. If you're not a fan, I think we'll convince you in the next couple of minutes to start downloading episodes. So without any further ado, please welcome Jason and our guest, Jake from Disgraceland. Rob from Long Island, play us in.
Now it's the time of the show. It's the time of the show. Which time is that? It's the time when Jason joins Paul and they JUSTCHAT just chat.
Well, welcome to the show, Jake. I have to tell you that Jason and I often sit here and talk about the things that we are into. And Jason was the person who, kind of clued me into the Disgraceland podcast. I've been listening since Jason has turned me onto it. And it is one of my favorites.
And I think I've started listening very early on, Jake.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I emailed years ago because I talked about it and it was pretty early on in its inception.
Yeah, I think it was the first few months. I don't know how you got hip to it so quickly, but I remember reading, you wrote something nice or you said something nice in I think it was GQ.
Oh,
I was like, holy shit, this Jason Mantzoukas is talking about Disgraceland. and I somehow found your email and harassed you and thanked you for it. So thanks very much. And Paul, thanks for the kind words.
I love it. I love it. I love the show because, I love a deep dive on music. A lot of people here know that like Paul and I end up talking a lot about music and I'm like a very passionate music person. And so like that podcast, when that hit, I was like, perfect. This is all I want is deep dives into these stories.
And what I've been loving lately is not the turn, but the addition of these icons, right? Like there is the Kobe Bryant one is a great, like deep dive. Hunter S. Thompson, right? And Anthony Bourdain. Like you're going now. It's everything. It's right now. I know right now in my Apple Podcast. Not a plug for Apple Podcasts. No big deal. I subscribe. I have the Metallica episode, which I'm very excited about. But I love that it can kind of go back and forth and that you can kind of go deep into these people like Steve McQueen and stuff like things I never knew. So I'm getting my music stuff, but I'm also getting stuff from people that I like. I mean, I got really down a Kobe Bryant wormhole because I kind of missed me being a New York guy. So in the last couple of years, I've found out a lot more stuff, and that was a great episode.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's been going beyond music and covering subjects that are athletes or, in the case of Anthony Bourdain, a chef, or Hunter S. Thompson, a writer. It's in part like since I launched the show, which was solely about musicians and true crime, I immediately was getting requests from the audience to broaden out and cover subjects from different mediums and different areas. And I resisted it for a long, long time. And then it just became a thing. Like I was like, Anthony Bourdain is one of the most rock and roll dudes I've ever uncovered.
Yeah.
I could talk about Bourdain for conservatively the next 2 hours straight. It is, I still watch those shows like constantly. He's one of the only people in like my entire life in Los Angeles that I was very nervous to meet.
Oh, wow.
Like I met him at a party, just like in passing. And I was like, oh my, I started to freak out. Like there's Anthony Bourdain. And someone was like, oh, I know who he's talking to. Do you want me to introduce? Let's walk over there. And I was like, no. And I avoided it for a while, and then it organically happened, and I just got to shake hands and say hello, and that was truly it. But I was like nervous. I was very nervous to meet Anthony Bourdain for such a what an outsized person he is in my life. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you just described how it was when I met Paul for the first time. It was, but I'm not the kid. I hear you. Like Bourdain has this sort of mythological rock star thing to him in a lot of ways, more than I don't want to sound like an old guy, but more than modern rock stars do. You know, like
absolutely.
I think what you're describing, Jason, is that vibe where you're like, shit, Elvis just entered the room. You know what I mean? How do I talk to him?
He also has so many of the hallmarks of the rock and roller, you know, the itinerant lifestyle, the ex-heroin junkie, the loud, brash, like those kind of chefs. I feel like that generation of chefs especially fancied themselves rock and rollers. Like there was an element that they felt part of that world.
And when Kitchen Confidential came out, that book, it was revelatory. You know, like, again, we're thinking about a time where now we have reality crews all over the place. This is like 2000 that book comes out. And it opens your eyes to this entire culture that now has been so glorified in the Gordon Ramsays and all these different celebrity chefs. And there's so many that have TV shows and have books. But I feel like he was the first one that kind of ripped back that curtain and just showed this insane life.
And showed it for it's like The Dirt.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Exactly.
Literally,
it's like The Dirt, but for an industry that you weren't aware was that insane, or at least I wasn't. You know, like you're saying, Kitchen Confidential really opened a door that I didn't know what was going on back there. Versus The Dirt, of course, I knew what rock and roll was, but these were just next level stories in that world. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. His was revelatory, and also. The thing I appreciated about him early on was he has that first book, cooking book or world from. He had some novels before that, but Kitchen Confidential comes out, and during that time, his persona, when the TV show starts to happen, he took a real sort of punk rock approach. And I don't mean to sound like I'm lauding him for this, but he kind of went at the Gordon Ramsays of the world, and he quickly became. I think it was his instinct to be adversarial toward the more mainstream TV chefs. But then after he got a little success, almost immediately he is able to empathize with what they're doing in a way where he's like, he kind of just like has a hands-off approach, and he doesn't really apologize, but he's no longer judging them in a way, because now he's on the inside and he can see it. And I just thought, wow, that's such a mature way of looking at it.
Well, and that's it. You're watching him grow up and mature. You're watching him transfer from the rebellious, you know, Gen X-y fuck you kind of like, you know, like absurdly contrarian, especially if you watch early Bourdain, like purposefully contrarian. And then as he ages and he gets more worldly and he switches to CNN and he becomes more curious and more interested. And then he starts to develop these friendships, and those later episodes where he's got Eric Repair or he's got Jose Andres or he's got Massa, and they're all with him. I love how much they're just roasting him. They're just making fun of Tony, and it's the Eric Repair roasting Tony Bourdain is some of the best episodes of that show. I love it.
I love that too. That's such a good, because you know, as I think this is a guy thing. I used to think, and perhaps I still do, that it's a New England thing. Might just be an old world thing where you know you're close with a friend when you can just tear him a new asshole, and you can just rip them apart, and it's how you bond. You know, it's how you get along. It's great to see. It is
very Boston. I will say it is very Boston, very New England. The contrarianism, the idea of roasting people, like I feel like that is very Boston.
Yeah. But also, this is a person who's been propped up in the media. Like, so, you know, his persona, like to everybody else, is like, whoa, badass. This guy. And I feel like they're like, that's, you know, you're playing this up. Like, or they know who he actually is. And I think there's a time when he is leaning into the bad boy chef. I mean, that Fox show was terrible. But it, you know, but I think it played up this like, it leaned into rockstar, right? But here's a guy who ultimately like wanted to be like a comic book artist too. Like, he made a comic book, but like there are very nerdy,
there's a great
cool things about him.
There's a great episode where he goes to the Jersey Shore, and it's where his family used to go when they were young, and his brother is, wait a minute, is it the Jersey Shore? Or maybe it's Long Island? And his family, anyway,
Shore, I think.
It is
with
Jersey
Chris.
Shore.
Yeah, Chris.
And his brother is the guest. And it's a super, super revealing episode in a way that the show isn't always, because here's this, they're talking about, they're talking, Anthony Bourdain's always speaking autobiographically, but there's someone there who can check him, who's his brother, and it's a great episode as a result.
Right. I need to
because
rewatch
it's it's not self-mythologizing as much, because someone's there to be like, no, I was the one that was mad.
Yeah, it's true. I'm so I hate to use this word, but envious of him as an artist, because it's not a show about food. It's not a show about cooking. It's not even a show about travel. Neither are his books. They're all about him. It's completely subjective. And to me, he's the sort of extension from Hunter S. Thompson, the guy who put himself
another great episode, by the way.
Thank you very much. Put himself in the spot, and really we just fall in love with him, and we want to see whatever he's looking at through his eyes, whether it's the world or what's on his plate.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, as a writer, I didn't really understand that I actually understood point of view in say filmmaking. Like if you watch Mean Streets and then later in life learn a little bit about Martin Scorsese and his upbringing, you can just see immediately that is his worldview at that time when he made that movie is in that movie, even though he's not in the movie. There's not a real character that's based on him. And I feel like as people in the world who make things, that's the highest thing you can aspire to, is how to treat the world through your eyes. And Bourdain did it better than anyone, man. I'm constantly in awe of it.
Well, I do think that there's something to be said for lack of a better example, but like podcasts, travel shows, like these little weekly docs that are similar to podcasts allow that to come out, because when you're doing something major right now and you're not super established, a lot of times you are pushed into these boxes. So it's hard. So you get these moments where I think when Taika Waititi first kind of blew onto the scene, but whoa, like we feel like a voice behind Thor that we didn't actually feel in any other Marvel movie so succinctly, right? It's like, and we are looking for those voices to kind of break through. It's just hard to do. And sometimes there's a lot that don't break through, and there's a lot that fail too,
and I think your show does a good job of, taking icons and humanizing them, showing them for the human beings that they are. You know what I mean? Not lionizing them. Not like, this is not we're building someone up, nor is it like tearing them down. It is just trying to approach it from a very human point of view, especially, in terms of these stories. That's what I like about your show a lot, is you are getting your research. You're telling stories that even if I am a fan of this person, might not know already.
Yeah. Honestly, to what Paul just said about the box, right? Like I'm not a journalist. I'm just finding information that's already out there, that's already been published in other mediums, books, documentaries, etc. And I'm putting them together to fit in this box. And there's something magical that happens just by the virtue of that structure, where you're like, oh, I can listen to this, I can hear this story in a new way because it's in podcast form, and I'm not seeing it in like a behind the music treatment or something along those lines. And in the beginning when I launched, it was 2018, and we were sort of, it was the Me Too thing was happening in and around there. And a lot of people misinterpreted what I was doing as this sort of gotcha kind of takedown of all the monsters from the music industry, of which there are plenty. But one of you guys mentioned the human side of it. All these guys and girls, and there's way more guys who have had this transgressive behavior in rock and roll, they all, even if they're monstrous, and you mentioned The Dirt and Motley Crue, and Vince Neil, killed a guy. Like and even, even Bourdain, as much as we love him, like there's some truly awful behavior there on the other side of the coin too. I don't mean on the Me Too side. It's very complicated. But my point is, what I try to do is exactly what you said, find the human element and search for the redemption there. Because there almost always is, because at the end of the day, I believe most people are good and most people want to do the best thing that they possibly can. And, these subjects that I'm talking about happen to try to do that. Their hero's journey happens in some of the most dramatic circumstances ever. So it gets really interesting.
But, and I think what's so interesting too is like you talk about somebody like Brittany Murphy in one of your episodes, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's also like what society does to people, right? Like how people get lifted up and kind of, I kind of feel like the image I see of it is like they spin you around until you start like almost coming off of the Earth's surface, and then they just kind of let you go. And then it's like, it's your responsibility to get back down to ground. And some people can't, they just spin out of control. And like a twister, they just go up into the sky. Right. And it's
oh,
like,
boy,
wait like a minute. Twisters, two
wait
twisters
a
come
minute.
In. Yes. Twisters to me is a real, but
I think it's the kind of show that has infinite possibilities for success. Sorry, I was in a movie called Infinite.
But but I do think that's the kind of thing that we love, and we kind of come against this all the time, which is like we want the bad behavior up until a point, and then when we feel like the bad behavior has reached a point that we don't like, then we kind of shun them, and then the door is closed, and then you have a lot of these like weird, I don't know, like these comeback stories, these successes, these highs, these lows, and I think what you're kind of, from at least my point of view and listening to the episodes, like it is something that I think happens a lot more in music. It happens to our biggest stars. We just aren't making like huge stars anymore, like outside of music in a weird way. Like, it's
right.
like, it's different, so it's interesting to see like how society everyone's on board, and then just something happens, something switches, and it's either you're not cool or you've made a mistake, and then you're done. And I understand that goes to cancel culture, but it's also beyond cancel culture because it's one-hit wonders. It's what was cool that's not cool. It's everything.
And you're also talking about like all the ups and downs that come with people's pursuit of greatness or people's pursuit of, like you're talking about, your show is talking about people who are at the top of the heap, whether it's, massive rock stars or Al Pacino or big, huge actors or sports icons. These are icons. And you're telling the stories of all the ups and downs that got them there in ways that are not, like the friction that they come up against, and oftentimes it is true crime related. There are many crime stories inside of a lot, like you say, Vince Neil killed someone, in a driving accident, right?
You guys are reminding me of this story I want to tell you both if you haven't heard it already, because it encapsulates both of what both you guys are saying. You're talking about these guys hitting these obstacles and these challenges, and one of the things that really hit me early on, like I grew up like you guys, music fans, and we think of like, I always thought of David Bowie and Led Zeppelin as being kind of on the same platform, the same plane, I guess, of fame. And as I got into researching them both more deeply, it hit me, I wasn't alive. I wasn't listening to music in high school in the 70s, so I had no real context, but Led Zeppelin was fucking huge, like beyond big, like the biggest fucking thing ever. David Bowie in the 70s, we're used to Almost Famous and the whole like, it's Bowie. And there was a real cult of Bowie during the whole Ziggy thing, especially when he started to really blow up. But he never hit like Zeppelin level, and he wanted to, and he was infatuated by Jimmy Page, and he wanted to get there. So that was the one key thing that hit me, is like, wow, all these guys, even though we think of them as successful at their highest, they're not even thinking of themselves as successes. They still have a ways to go. And
I feel like that in my life, you achieve certain things that you want to achieve, but it doesn't mean you're like, great, I did it.
Right.
You're like, I still would love to X, Y, or Z,
Right. And it's also like the outside looking in is a very different perspective. I remember the first job I ever had, that was professional was on this show called Best Week Ever on VH1, right? And every week we go on and we talk about like the pop culture of that week. And we were on every week. So that was a sign. So people would be like, assume I was wealthy, that I was making $500 a taping of Best Week Ever, right? Yeah. 500. Like even if I did it every single week, I was like, I didn't make enough to live ultimately. You're just putting it together just barely. And I think it's perspective a lot. And I realized what Jason was saying. I just watched that Faye Dunaway documentary on HBO.
Oh. Married to Peter Wolf from the J. Giles Band.
Yeah. Sorry. I remember that.
That's wild. And that was like, that to me was really interesting because here's somebody who you think, from Bonnie and Clyde all the way here and just like fucking getting, slammed on either side. And I think all the time with women, it's also like, well, they're difficult. Like, and I think men, run that different, there's a different argument. And I think we've been seeing that a lot of the times in these new things you did an episode about Britney Spears, but there's, we're relooking at Britney Spears, relooking at Monica Lewinsky, relooking at Pam Anderson, like these, perspective shifts. But it is really interesting, like that idea that like everyone thinks, oh, you're on top, you have every opportunity. And I remember listening to this interview with Tom Hanks. And they're like, oh, what do you want to do next? And this is after he'd won some Academy Awards. And he's like, well, I just want the parts that they're looking for a Tom Hanks type, saying, and it was like, and I love that thing. It's like, oh, he's missing out on, he feels like he's not getting the offers to do the
wild
thing.
Doesn't it feel like, you guys have been doing what you've been doing for a while and you seem to love what you do and you have great careers. And Jason, you just alluded to this. You just mentioned it. And I think we're all, I don't know, man, it strikes me as like all of us who are making stuff, right? We're in this world where there's constant demand for more stuff if we want to stay in the boxes that we're in. And I don't know where it ends. I don't know if Tom Hanks is still like, oh, geez, I want this instead. Like, where does it end for anybody? And I feel like it's a scar of being a creative person because there's always this sort of bright side, this carrot that's right there that we never actually catch.
Well, I agree. And I think and I think the danger in it is if the carrot or the thing you're trying to attain is something exterior, like I want to be blank, or you know what I mean? Or whether that is interior. Like I actually want, my wants are these versus I want them to give me an award, or I want to be validated versus, oh no, creatively, I want to be challenged. Creatively, I want to continue to grow or be challenged, or even just as a fan. I want to go and do this or that. I want to participate as a fan in different types of shows or different types of things. And that's just without getting, not lazy is the wrong word, but it's too settled. I find that there's a certain restlessness that people have that are I guess curiosity, like I said about Anthony Bourdain. I'm still curious, and I'm so glad to still be curious rather than like, great, I got the thing that I wanted and now I'm set. I'm done.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that play too, which is like, you're right, the curiosity is really good. I think that anybody who that's creative wants to try different things. And I think it's the reason why sometimes people get mad. Like, oh, Daniel Stern's making sculpture. Why? And it's like, well, because he wants to, right? Like, it's like he's fueled to do it. It's not like he's not trying to fuck you over. Like Daniel Stern's not, and Simone Biles said something at the Olympics this week, which is like, stop asking everybody what's next. I just won a gold medal. Like, let me at least go here and then go to the next place. It's like
it's so in one way, thing, I feel like the same thing happens when it's like, when are you going to do another blank?
Yeah.
When it's the same, I feel like it's so hard to live in that present moment because so oftentimes people are saying, when are you going to do another The League? Or for a musician, when are you going to do another
When's the next
Stardust?
album?
And that's the thing about Bowie is Bowie, I would argue, never achieves the level of fame that Led Zeppelin does because he's so curious and is constantly changing and evolving. He's not doing the same stuff. He's deconstructing the band, stripping it down. Now he's going to make, he's going to make Low, and he's going to make Lodger. He's going to make the Brian Eno records. Now he's going to scrap that. Now he's going to start making albums with Tin Machine. He's going to start making albums with a band with Soupy Sales Kids. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's not how you sell arenas, and it's not until the Sound and Vision tour when Bowie starts selling arenas, because he's like, this is my farewell tour. I'm going to do everything.
Yeah. And then he becomes the icon status, the sort of comprehensive version of Bowie. Yeah, I want to ask you guys, if you don't mind, like, one of the reasons I love your show is because your fandom just is so present, and it's so refreshing to hear you guys be psyched on things. Your recommendations, when you talk about it, even when you're just referencing other artists and other films in relation to the film that you're talking about, it's very clear you guys consume a ton of content, and you always have, and you're in love with this shit. That's I'm the same exact way, but I'm in a vacuum. It's just me and a microphone on my show. And then I just kind of stay in my lane. You guys do your show, but then you're out in the world making television and film, oftentimes with, I assume, I know people that you guys love and look up to. And I'm curious how, I was able to maintain my cool around Paul when I ran into him at that bar, but it was tough. But I'm curious, like, how you guys maintain the professionalism, but you're like, oh shit, like you said earlier, like it wasn't work, you're at a party, but Bourdain's over there, and Jason, you don't want to look like a fanboy asshole going up to him, but there's part of us that are fanboys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And if given the opportunity, if I see somebody that I'm a huge fan of, boy, do I want to say something, but I usually don't.
I'm always
like, mostly because I'm like, I don't like being bothered that much if I'm out in the world or something. So I'm going to tend not to. But if I feel like I'm having if I'm sitting waiting for an elevator and somebody's there, I might be like, oh, hey man, I'm a big fan. I like blah, blah, blah. Or I was waiting for an audition once and I was sitting next to Jamie Hector from The Wire. And The Wire
which character is Jamie Hector?
Marlo Stansfield.
Oh, nice.
Marlo Stansfield. Wow. He's also J. Edgar on Bosch. You might know him if you watch Bosch. Yeah. Anyway, great actor, love fantastic. Bosch. And it was just he and I in a waiting room, just sitting waiting. And so the Wire had ended maybe the year before or something. And I just was like, hey man, I just want to say incredible stuff. Like, wow, we just like, and then we did our thing and we both did our audition. And then as we were leaving, he said, hey, did you think in the end of because I'd referenced something that happens in the final episode, and he then started a conversation with me about it,
nice.
And I was like, that's the perfect version of it. And and that's happened like once,
I have taken the point of view that Jason has taken, because I've made the mistake in the other thing. There's not really anything to say after I'm a fan, right? Whereas you get a much better conversation, or I've found myself getting into better conversations organically, right? Oh, people are here and we're just talking. And I've also found that the bigger the celebrity, like the more A-lister celebrity that you meet, they take care of that for you. I have met many a person to be like, hey, what's up? Oh, that's a great shirt. Where'd you get that? You go to Target? Oh man, I love Target. And then it's like, they've basically driven the conversation like in a good way. Yeah. They're like, hey, I'm driving, we're talking about something and we're off, and I'm not famous, I'm just a person, and oh, you got kids, it's like, and then it's a done deal. And I feel like that's like the art of an A-lister, or the A-listers that I've met. They come in almost aggressively hard, either at you on a compliment or in a whole different way. And you're like, oh, I'm taking off balance. And then it's frazzled.
I will say the other thing that's true, at least for me, is I am almost never nervous around celebrities. You know, like I'm never nervous to meet like a Martin Short or people that I revere. Let me be clear. People that I revere, I'm not like, oh no, the way that like I was introduced to, this is years ago again, Elvis Costello. And I was like beside myself with anxiety. Musicians somehow occupy a different space to me. And that's where I'm like, starstruck or nervous or whatever, those are the people that I'm like, oh my God, I want to go talk to jazz drummer Chris Corsano, but I'm too nervous, you know, versus like, I'll walk up to whatever joker tells jokes like I do to be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Comedians freak me out. Musicians don't. It's the opposite for me because I grew up in bands and my dad was in a band, and there's a shorthand, even with actors too, where there's sort of a knowing, like it's weird you mentioned The Wire. I met Prez. Remember the guy who played Prez? I met him in Davis Square once. I didn't even meet him. I was walking by and he was with his family, and it was one of those things where I just saw him. We locked eyes. We were like 2 feet from each other, and he obviously saw that I recognized him, and I just fist bumped him. And I was like, "What's up, Prez?" And I just kept going. I didn't stop or anything. But with comedians, I'll never talk to a comedian. Like if I run into a comedian, Paul, it was rare when we started talking. You started talking to me, I think, about the drink I ordered. And then we started talking about our kids. And it was like, you know, we were 20 minutes in before I brought up your show, I think. But comedians to me, I just feel like have this layer of darkness that is right below the surface that I'm intimidated by. Whereas musicians, I'm not, because I know it. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I also feel like, you know, there's something about it. Like I'm in this business of whatever this business is because I am
show business, baby.
Show business.
The business of show.
Because I am a fan. Like I am a fan of all this shit. And I think the reason why we get away with this show is because there is a love of bad movies. Like as much as we're making fun of them, we love them. Like, right? We would be having these conversations not on mic. We'd be seeing these movies, you know, but not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, just because like, oh, I got to see that. I want to see that. And I think that's the secret sauce to all of this stuff is like, you know, whatever you're working on, I imagine the same way. It's like, well, you're not coming here as an investigative journalist in the sense of, I'm going to fucking knock these people down a peg. I'm going to get in here. And I think that's an important balance too, right? Because it's sort of like, yeah, we're in this field, we're doing this stuff, but we also, it is all like, you know, it's what we also consider ourselves a part of. I think, you know, all of us can do that, you know, and say that. It's not about tearing it down. And I've watched people whose intent is only to tear it down, right? To, you know, and that's like, it's not fun because it's like the bitter, angry thing, and that's not as much fun. But I've been on
I think that's what is probably why we've been doing it so long. Is I think, like you were saying, Jake, like I think we are coming at a lot of this stuff as a fan first and having fun. It's fun to sit together with friends and talk about the Fast and Furious movies. You know? I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. We just happen to have started a podcast in which we get to do it, you know, or the Gerard Butler movies or the Nick Cage movies, all this stuff that we love. It's not about exercising a negative attitude or point of view. It's about exercising a positive attitude on something that has not gone well. And I think is the difference. And there are people
I will never approach. Like, unless it was brought to me. Like, and I've been in situations where I could talk to people who I view as like Eddie Murphy. If I ever see Eddie Murphy, I will never say a goddamn
word. He's Elvis status. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for us, like my wife, I'm 11 years older than my wife, and she saw that bit with Eddie Murphy, the SNL Too Hot for the Hot Tub thing.
Mm-hmm.
She was
James
like,
Brown.
she came up to me and she was like, I understand you now. She's like, because like my go-to goofy voice is like Eddie Murphy delirious. You know what I mean?
Right.
That I only do in front of her. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, you don't understand. Like that shit was everywhere when we were kids. And he wasn't a comedian. He was fucking Elvis. He was Michael Jackson. He was like, he was that level, you know, like pick your icon. But it's just funny because now there's this whole generation that's, or even multiple generations who just knows him as the guy who made kids movies, which is shocking to me.
Or there's now a generation that doesn't even know him as that it doesn't really know Eddie Murphy. Like the young kids now, I really don't, unless their parents are showing them old Klump's Nutty Professors movies. Like, I don't think there's a teenage generation that really has an awareness of Eddie Murphy. You know what I mean? The way that we watched his whole arc happen, you know, from 18 years old on SNL, you know, young, you know, for only cast member, I believe, to host during the period of time he was still in the cast.
Right.
All the way through, you know, those stand-up specials. Like, those stand-up specials were like when I was in high school in the 80s, those were being passed around on cassette like they were contraband.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely.
We knew all the bits. I mean, I remember being at the bus stop in like the 6th, 7th grade or whatever, and it was so filthy, and it just gave you license to be filthy and make people laugh, and it was kind of smart in a weird way. It was fucking awesome.
I sat in front of my television, which we did not get HBO, but you could, that was back in the time when you would, like, if you got HBO, they would just unscramble it. But if you didn't get HBO, you could listen to everything on HBO. So I would sit in front of a scrambled television and watch, you know, Eddie Murphy on Delirious, like, and like I wake up at 2 a.m. to watch it, you know, because my parents would be asleep, you know, which I love. But I mean, wait, I have a question about, obviously there's a handful, a bunch of seasons that you have, but you also do a lot of research. Mm-hmm. Was there one, like, I mean, how much time does it take you to put together one of these, like, or an average time? Because it seems like a lot of work, and I look at
it's a lot. Like you're doing quite a lot of, like, you know, like reporting or journalism, I feel like.
Yeah, I hesitate to call it journalism because I feel like journalists find new information, and I just find
you're aggregating
out there.
Yeah,
right,
right. I get it.
But you put it together in a way that you are still creating a new and completely a new narrative.
It's like you're a Malcolm Gladwell, if you will.
It's my thanks. I'll take that.
Your Gladwellian approach.
I've done my 10,000 hours. I will. So to answer your question, it takes about a week of research. Like, every week for me is either I'm researching or I'm writing. So I research for 5 days and then I write for 5 days. And when I say day, I mean, like, you know, 6 a.m. to lunchtime. I can't do it longer than that. Then I do other work stuff after that. But then we have a team here that does the audio, the scoring, and the mixing as well. And that takes about another week. So it's really about 3 weeks for a full episode, 3 weeks of work that go into it.
Yeah. Got it.
Do you guys, can I ask you guys a question that I get asked myself a lot? And I'm curious here. Oftentimes people ask me if I ever run into anybody that I cover in a podcast.
The number one question we get asked.
Yeah, we get the same question.
And you mentioned Fast and Furious, and I had someone recently from that franchise reach out to me, and I immediately thought of you guys, of course. But I'm wondering if how you handle it. Like, I know how you handle it, but I'd like to hear some anecdotes.
I got asked by Charlize Theron for her big event that she does every year. Jason, June, and we all got asked to host a screening on the Universal lot for her charity for Fast 10? 9? Yeah, one of those, 9. And it was with the entire cast and the director. And, you know, and it was nerve-wracking. I called Vin Diesel Dom. But I will say that, like,
that's the best specific is that you repeatedly called him Dom.
He didn't correct me.
Absent-mindedly. You didn't do it on purpose, to be clear.
Yeah.
And we sat up there and June and I, like, did an opening that was just kind of poking fun, but also having fun with, like, we love it. We do love it, you know? And you know, and it was like, oh my gosh, do these people know? And there's certain levels of people like that have no idea that we even do this.
They just don't know.
They just don't know.
For the most part, most people have no concept that are like Nicolas Cage has no Paul did a movie with Nicolas Cage. We've probably done 10 Nicolas Cage movies.
Were you
somebody
nervous
asked
going
me,
into it?
somebody
knows
asked
what a
me,
podcast is.
but I was like, yeah, like for me to be nervous about that, I'd have to explain what a podcast was.
Right.
Then I'd have to go down one other level. Like, it was like, you know, so yeah, I don't think, like, you know, and then the people who do know it because they are fans, or they are want to know, or they are interested, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, because I think the truth is like we've all worked we've all had some shitty experiences.
We've all been in stinkers. Let's be clear.
Right,
like we're not standing on a mountain of like flawless work. Right. We've all been in turkeys. We know how it happens. And that's what the thing is. The show isn't like, it's easy to make a good movie. How come you made a bad one?
Yeah.
It's really like it's actually quite difficult to make a good movie, and the ways this one went sideways are enjoyable for the podcast.
Right.
And that, so yes, so I think that we have bumped into people. It's always been pretty good. The story I've told a handful of times, because it happened kind of recently. During COVID, June and I were on The Goldbergs, the TV show The Goldbergs. And it was a time when not only people were wearing masks, but they were wearing face shields, right? So it was like almost like what you would picture like somebody who was doing welding is wearing, so it's a clear face shield and a mask. And all morning long, we're being directed by this amazing director. Just great. We're doing our stuff, but it's all pretty distant. And in the middle of shooting this scene, we're a couple hours in now, the director says to June and I, I'm the naughty from Hottie and the Naughty. And June and I were like, oh, and now normally what I can do in those moments is read somebody's face. Like, yeah, the Hottie and the Naughty, right? and you see something, but because she was so covered, I did not know if she was really mad.
You couldn't read her cues.
I couldn't read any cues. She was, obviously she's a great name. We had nothing bad to say about her, and that right. But it was like a moment where I had a full-on panic attack because I'd not only been working with this person all the way, but then I could not take any cue about, was she pissed or was she excited? Excited may be a tougher word, but but she seemed okay with it. Wow. Look, she was in a movie called Hottie and the Naughty with Paris Hilton. We all know on some level what that is.
It is funny. There, I've had a couple of interactions with people, all of which have been relatively positive. I had the version of it for me was I was in a meeting once with producers, and we were talking, and one of the assistants was clearly a fan of the podcast, brought up the podcast, and the producer was like, "Oh, what's the podcast? Tell me all about it." And I kind of explained the bullet points of what the podcast is. And she was like, "Wait a minute, I feel like I've heard about that before. Why have I heard about this podcast?" And as I was kind of just absentmindedly like surveilling the room, I noticed that they had all on one shelf, they had all of the books that we had done one of that book series as an episode. And I was like, oh, we did that movie. We did that movie right there from that book. Oh. And the producer was like, oh, yes, someone sent me that. I listened to a little bit of it, but if you want to know, I could explain to you how that got made. So she was like, I was nervous for a second, and then she was like, oh, that was a disaster.
Now, on the other hand, I will tell you that Jason and I did find out that when Jason and I did a trailer reaction to the Fast and Furious trailer for one of them, Hobbs and Shaw. It was brought into a Universal marketing meeting and of how they could market the movie better based on our reactions to the trailer.
Wow.
Yes. So that is something that I always think is hilarious.
That's power, baby.
Did they tell you that, or did someone on the inside?
I heard from an internal source that happened. It was like somebody texted me that they were in that meeting, and it was very positive. It was like, this is what we need to be embracing. This is what's working. It's so crazy.
It's so fucking hard. You guys know better than I do to make a movie, and then I cannot imagine what it's like when you guys are in movies yourselves and you walk away, you're done shooting, and it's all completely beyond your control. Unless you're actually making it yourself, you're the director. It's a really strange medium, I would imagine, to be in.
Oh, it's absolutely bizarre. And the bigger the thing, the more powerless you are inside of it, the more of just a tiny little piece you are, and then it really is just a freight train rocketing forward, and you are just jumping on and jumping off, and you're like, I hope this gets to the destination. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's like, I was reading this book about Airplane, the movie Airplane, and John Landis has this quote. Funny, it's John Landis. There's an episode you should do. But John Landis has this quote about, like every movie I've tried to make better it doesn't always work out that way. But my intent is, how can I make this better? And and I think that's true for everything. No one sets out to make a bad movie.
Oh no. But then sometimes you are on set and you're like, I think we're making a turkey.
Yeah, this is a stinker. Jake, your podcast is going on. You can listen, you could subscribe, you can get all the back episodes, you get your book, which I recently have gotten. And there's so much to digest with your podcast. I recommend everybody who loves our podcast. I think you'll love it because it's just deep dives into cool, interesting people. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
And I feel like when people recommend our podcast, they're like, "Oh, what episodes should I do?" or whatever. When people are asking me rather about, "Oh, what's your podcast? How should I listen?" And I feel like this about yours as well. I always say, look for movies that you like, know, enjoy, whatever, and listen to those. And I feel the same about your podcast. Go in and cherry pick the stories and the people or the things you're interested in, because that's going to draw you in deeper. Are there any ones though that you want to shout out as like, here, go look for these episodes?
I do have an upcoming Jason and Paul episode that's coming out.
Finally.
No, I would say, to answer the question seriously, maybe because we talked about it, maybe the Anthony Bourdain episode, the Jerry Lee Lewis episode, which was the first one about rock and roll pioneer Jerry Lee Lewis, who allegedly murdered his wife. Air quotes around allegedly. That's a good one. But then I would follow your advice, Jason. And we have episodes of Disgraceland from every genre of music and actors and actresses from every era of Hollywood, even some athletes. And like I said, Bourdain, Warhol, some other stuff too. So
yeah, I mean, it really is great. I mean, you can go anywhere from like Diddy and Mariah Carey to like the Clash and the Wu-Tang Clan. It's like it's all over the place. It's really great in that way. Awesome. Well, this is great. Jake, thank you for stopping by.
Pleasure was mine. Big fan of the show. This is awesome. Thank you so much, and looking forward to talking to you guys again sometime soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jake Brennan. Please make sure you're listening to Disgraceland. And now it is time to announce our next movie. Next week, we'll be going from Disaster of the Fart to a Disaster of the Heart. That's right. Next episode, we are watching the 2024 rom-com Beautiful Wedding, starring Dylan Sprouse and Virginia Gardner. This is a sequel to Beautiful Disaster. Yes, a sequel to one of my favorite movies, and this one gets even better. That's right. So refamiliarize yourself with these wonderful people. Abby and Travis, they wake up after a crazy night in Vegas to discover they're married. They head to Mexico for a honeymoon, but then chaos follows them at every turn, and they must decide if their marriage is another disaster waiting to happen. Anyway, there aren't enough reviews on Rotten Tomatoes to give this film a score, but Sandy Chen from Common Sense Media writes, "And in the end, this chaotic sequel is a reminder that sometimes one movie is enough." Ouch! Take a listen to the trailer.
What the hell happened last night?
Okay, oh my God, Abby?
We got married last night.
Let's do this right and have a proper honeymoon.
I love you, Pigeon.
Welcome to Gatito, Mexico.
Hola, señor Imado. Arriba y arriba y arriba.
Feelings just crossed the threshold.
Well, this isn't too barbaric.
No, but it was so cute with our initials on it.
TNA, because you got the best.
I loved it. I love it. This movie is bonkers, bananas, batshit crazy. Not only do I recommend watching the movie, I recommend watching the movie and then listening to the episode. Beautiful Wedding is available to stream on Hulu, and you can rent it on Amazon Prime Video or Apple TV. Separately, I encourage you to check out Hoopla, Canopy, and Libby, which are digital media services offered by your local public library that allow you to consume movies, TV, music, audiobooks, ebooks, and comics for free. All right, people, that is it for Last Looks. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate and review the show. Make sure that downloads are turned on. It's important. It actually affects our numbers, and when we have higher numbers, we get everything that we need and want. That's all I want you to do is turn on the downloads. Anyway, visit us on social media at HDTGM, and I want to shout out the Action Jackson 5 for making our opening theme song, because it rules. And a big thank you to our producers, Scott Sonny and Molly Reynolds, and our movie-picking producer, Avril Halley, and our associate producer, Jess Cisneros, and our engineer, Casey Holford. We'll see you next week for Beautiful Wedding.